We would all prefer to see a negotiated end that leads to all the hostages being released, that leads to Hamas being disarmed and eliminated as a threat. And we think Qatar can play a very key role in that. So we're going there. We have a close partnership with the Qataris. In fact, we have an enhanced defense cooperation agreement, which we've been working on. We're on the verge of finalizing. We want them to know how much we appreciate and respect all the time and work and effort they put in the past to these negotiations. And we hope they'll re-engage despite everything that's happened. We know they're upset about it.
Secretary, yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu declined to refuse to carry out further strikes on Hamas operatives. As you know, there's Hamas operating in Turkey and Egypt, in addition to Qatar. What was your message on further strikes? Was it don't do it again? Was it another message?
Well, I'm not going to discuss the details of everything that we said. That's not the way you can conduct diplomacy or international relations via press conference in that way. But what I would say is this, like you said a moment ago, we all prefer that this end with a negotiated settlement that leads to the release of every single hostage, both alive and deceased, that leads to the demilitarization of the army of Hamas, so they can no longer pose a threat, not just to Israel, but everyone. These are barbarians, these are animals, Hamas. And that leads us into a process of reconstructing Gaza so the people of Gaza can have a life free of Hamas and a life that's much better than what they've experienced under Hamas. That's what we all prefer. We think Qatar can play a very key role in that. We don't want to see anything that undermines that. So that's why we added it to the trip. So they're close parties. We worked with them on a lot of things. We wanted to stay engaged, despite being upset as they are with what happened last week. And the president said he wasn't happy to see that happen. But nonetheless, all these problems are still here. They got to be fixed. Qatar can play a key role in solving.
But it's the big complaint that some people dug out yesterday was that the United States held the stand when it comes to Israel. He's not holding Israel to account for its actions. They see it as an escalation. They're killing civilians in Gaza. What would be your message? Very much later.
Well, look, I mean, the civilians are being used as human shields by Hamas. They've always done it. That's why they hide in tunnels and the civilians are on top. That's why they take hostages the way they have. That's why they'll take more hostages so they get their hands on them. So if the president wants to see it end, he wants to see it end quickly. And we prefer that it end quickly via negotiated settlement so all the fighting can stop. And we can begin the very hard work as an international community, not just the United States, of rebuilding Gaza and providing the people of Gaza a much better life than what we've had under Hamas. And we think our partners in the region can play a key role in that. We hope they'll stay engaged, and we think Qatar can play a very important role in that as they tried to do in the past.
Because the last chance had a lot to avoid a broader Israeli move into Gaza City.
Well, as you saw, the Israelis have begun to take operations there, so we think we have a very short window of time at which the deal can happen. We don't have months anymore, and we probably have days and maybe a few weeks. So it's a key moment, an important moment. And again, our preference, our number one choice is that this ends with a negotiated settlement where Hamas says we're going to demilitarize, we're going to allow the post forever, we're going to expand, we're going to release every single hostage. Probably not, it shouldn't be a single hostage. If you want to fight war, you fight wars against Hamas. You don't fight wars by taking civilians as a shield. And in this particular case, with the hostages, for almost over 2 years now, it's not the barbaric practice. It's an acceptable practice. The president called it out yesterday. So that's what we prefer. We want it to end that way. We hope that they'll all work, and that's what we're talking about. Countless power portion of it. We think that the Qataris can play a very key role in making that happen. That's his preference, and that's how we want to see it. Sometimes, when you're dealing with a group of savages like Hamas, but we hope it can happen. We're doing everything we can to see this.
Secretary, what's your message to Israeli ministers who are calling for a partial or complete annexation of the West Bank? And are you worried that the Abraham Accords could be in jeopardy?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think much of that is a reaction to several nations around the world deciding to unilaterally declare a Palestinian state. We warned them that we thought that was counterproductive. We have to think it's undermined negotiation because it emboldened Hamas, and we think it undermines future prospects of peace in the region. We thought it was unwise to do that, and I think we're seeing that as a counter-reaction. It's what we thought would happen. We warned that this kind of action would happen among some of the Israeli government if they did what they did. So right now we're focused on how can we end what's happening in Gaza? How can we end Hamas? How can we get the hostages free? And how can we create a framework so that the people of Gaza can have a much better life than they ever had before? That's what the president wants. That's what we're going to see over.
Mr. Secretary, you said yesterday that you were looking at the social media borders, maybe speaking about South Korea.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. If you're a foreigner, you're out there celebrating the assassination of someone who was speaking somewhere. I mean, we don't want you. Why would you want to give a pizza to someone who thinks it's good that someone was murdered in the public square? Church is common sense.
Have you actually revoked that? He said, yeah, have you taken that action?
Well, we revoke visas of people. I know we revoke visas of people that are in such We're supposed to deny visas. I mean, think about it. I want everybody to think about this for a moment. If you're out there celebrating the assassination, the cold blood of someone, and then you want to come, why would you want anything like that in our country as a terrorist of anything? We don't want to hear.
Have you gone after specifically, obviously, recommendations that have given to Secretary Landau on social media points to the individual?
We got to go with process and all these, and I'm sure there'll be something to revoke. There's no shortage of idiots around the world that decide it's a great idea to murder someone. Let's revoke people like that in our country. By the way, it's bad. We have people that are U.S. citizens that be that way. We can't revoke the idiots and moralities. But you're a foreigner. Why would we want to allow the United States someone who's in favor of murder? We don't want to murder people in America.
State Rubio, on Colombia, just briefly, that's Colombia decertification. Do you think you have to ask for Colombia to promote that decertification?
Yeah, our problem. Colombia's been a great partner historically. Unfortunately, they have a president now, in addition to being Arab, adopted a very good partner when it comes to taking approach. So it is something to stand under his leadership. I think we have really partners who are up in the military, the police. We've been working with them for decades. It's a great good news story. But they have bad leadership right now, especially on this issue of drugs. They can change. They can be more cooperative. They can be what doing get back on the list for certification.
Next week is the congratulations to Senator behind things. It's not going to be any extra scrutiny of the foreign diplomats who come of visas to attend that. There's already been Syrian authorities on specific countries that they face extra scrutiny.
I mean, we're not going to let people into our country that are pro-terror. We're not going to let people into the country that might bring harm to the United States. There's always scrutiny. There'll be, for the most part, there'll be plenty of people there. So if you're like in favor of terrorism or murdering people, we're probably not going to let you.
If it's not the city offensive, if it's not the city offensive, is your still assessment that Hamas can be military rather than something?
Oh, you didn't think I was working out there. It wasn't the hostages as it was in a long time ago, but these guys hide behind civilians and they hide behind the officers. That's what it was. There were no hostages, no civilians, no civilians, a year and a half ago. So, but now it's kind of a break point. We see what the Israelis are saying. There's no point in us to end it. At the end of Hamas' defeat. Our hope is that we can still negotiate something with a fighting stop. Hamas is disarmed, and Hamas is strongly, and we can rebuild Gaza, help rebuild Gaza, and not the rest of the world to give those people a better life than we never had under these savages from Hamas. That's still our hope. We're going to do everything we can to try to achieve that. It may not be possible. The feeling of Hamas is not easy. I think it's very bad thing. Yeah, wars. I mean, wars rich. I mean, there's wars. There's no good war, right? We don't like war. The president doesn't like war. The only thing worse than a war is a protracted one that goes on forever and ever. At some point, this has to end. At some point, Hamas has to be defanged. And we hope it can happen through negotiations. But at the time, unfortunately, it's running out in that regard. 2.5 years, still don't release the hostages. But that's why Israel, it's their war. They're going to get to decide how they want to proceed because they don't want to attacks on our purpose. But again, I want to reiterate, if there is a way to negotiate an end to this that leads to the release of the hostages and the elimination of Hamas as a threat, work for that. That's what we want to see happen. We're going to continue to do everything we can until there's nothing left to do, but we hope to achieve something. It's going to be hard, you know, it's not easy.
You're having negotiations, but should some of Hamas take those wins to discuss the fact that it's given? They were attacked by Israel. So who is it that Hamas who actually trying to
well, I mean, whoever has the authority to release of us.
we're talking about the Qatar mediators.
Well, the Qatar will play this. Yeah, I mean, the Qataris and the Egyptians work together on this, and they're important mediators. If any country in the world can help mediate it, the Qataris want. They're the ones that can do it. Now, I don't know if they can after what happens, but I think they could. If anyone can, they can. There's all the countries in the world that can play that role, and we hope they can. If they can, we want to be supporting them.
Would ask Qatar to have Hamas no longer be within their country? Are you still
Well, we're going to ask Qatar to continue to do what they've done, and we appreciate it very much. And that's played a constructive role in trying to bring this to an end. Obviously, they have decided they want to do that after last week or not. But we want them to know that if there's any country in the world that can help, end this to a negotiation, it's Qatar, and we appreciate that. And if there's a chance to do it, we want to encourage them to do it. We don't have to make that decision.
Now, Secretary, I have to say that you said the British Prime Minister has fired about the capacity. I mean, we have to obviously questions made out of the president, the plaintiff, FC. Does that make the open?
The UK can decide where it's their method. They want to recall them, that's their choice to do that. And they won't change the nature of the business for the visit. One of our strongest allies in the world, a very special relationship, and I think it makes a lot of sense for the president to visit the UK and stay invited. It's a very unique honor. I think it's the only president that's two stayed in their client, and so it's a big honor, and they're an important ally. Important. Right, let's go. We're going to be late.
On Ukraine briefly, I mean, is there a red line that we could cross that would actually?
Yeah, that's right. He talked about. There's no leader in the world that's done more deciding in that war than President Trump had. Multiple calls, multiple meetings with Zelensky, including probably next week again in New York. And so the president remains he inherited this 3.5-year-old war from the Biden administration. He's trying to do anything possible to bring it to an end. We're working closely with our partners in Europe on security guarantees. Because that's going to be necessary in any negotiation settlement. He's going to keep trying. It's achieved possible we want to achieve. At some point, the president makes food stop possible. He's not there yet, but he can get to that point. But you know, he's going to really go the extra mile. There's a way to end this war. He just wants it to stop. You know, thousands of people dying. The casualty rate for the Russians. Now, because in July they lost 20,000 soldiers. And of course, we talk about the suffering of civilians all throughout Ukraine every single night. The drone attacks, air attacks, the destruction. It's going to take a generation to rebuild the country. He wants the war to end, and we can play a role. He's the only leader in the world. The only leader in the world that can talk to both the Ukrainians, Europeans, and also to the Russians. President Trump. He's the only one that can. And he's not going to easily forfeit that role because he's the only one that can play it. If somehow we were to disengage from this or sanction Russia and say I'm done, then there's no one left in the world that can possibly mediate that. Now, maybe we get to that point. We hope not, because it's a really bad war in Washington. All right, let's go. Thank you, guys.